Okay, so now we are heading to the second session for the day, and it will be a workshop. Hopefully, slido.com is full with the feedback.
So we'll get started. People can be coming in anytime. Anyway, it's going to be a standing workshop.
TikTok, 11:44.
Yeah.
We are going to start now. This is going to be an interesting workshop, and because topic is very interesting, achieving agility in hardware. I have been keep hearing, okay, like hardware में कैसे agility लेके आएंगे? Hardware को बहुत ज़्यादा time लगता है. There are so many components which you need to club together and making it a increment. You can call it product increment. However, this is going to be, as I said earlier, this is going to be interesting workshop. We have two speakers available. First, I would like to talk about Manju, who is founder of APGI, and I am sure since now you have been know him very well. Quick introduction for Manju. Manju is passionate agilist, seasoned agile practitioner, and agile leader. He is expertise in lot of areas. I don't know to call it training, coaching, mentoring, whatever you call it. He is available. He is also an agile leadership journey guide to many professionals as well. And at the same time, we have Jayaprakash Manjunath. Can I call it JP?
Yes, please.
It's much better and easy for me. So JP is a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach. First time I am reading, and I would like to understand what is behind it. And a certified practitioner of global leadership assessment, which is called GLA 360. Again, complicated word. Again, I need more help. JP helps leader to become even better by being high on courage, humility, and discipline. So welcome to both of you. Thanks a lot, and all yours.
Yeah, thank you. So Manju, we'll get started. So good that we have less people because we don't have the logistics for too many people. Because we wanted to do this as a slide-less, PPT-less. Normally we do most of our workshop without PPT. And it's hardware, so actually we wanted to do it the hard way. And another interesting aspect would be, until the workshop gets over, I think you will not be able to sit mostly. Unless you have a physical need and you're getting tired, you can sit, or you're welcome to join us. And we'll be moving around from one section of the room, from one wooden space to another wooden space and so on. We have few charts coming up, so things will evolve as we move forward. Okay, and you also can co-create. So we have designed a couple of activities where we need to, we want to hear your perspectives, because as you know, agility is, a lot of us know it's common sense, but common sense applied in a context, and same thing is applicable even for hardware. That's how we started exploring. So maybe a quick background about me and Manju in this space. Manju, you want to start?
Thanks, JP. So we've been doing this experimentation about applying agility in hardware, right? It's proven thing in software world. A lot of the principles and practice level, you can straight away go and do a lot of experiments. But when it comes to hardware, it becomes a little bit tricky. I cannot say that it's not possible. There are many companies which have done it. So we started a few years ago. Some of our clients, they asked us, okay, can you help us to reduce the time to market, improve the overall product quality, because many of these products are typically mission critical products, which kind of takes care of lives of the people and the environment and so on and so forth. So that's where we started doing a little bit deep dive what's happening in this world. We could learn few tips and tricks, and as well as applied at a principle level. Then we started working closely with them, and we have few of those case studies, and would love to share as well as learn from your perspective as well. Yes,
yeah, and my journey with hardware, helping hardware companies is about 9 years. I started 9 years back. Some of my clients happen to be in the hardware space, and from past 3 years, I and Manju are focusing on a particular large organization who manufacture big devices. We are trying to help them how to bring agility in that. End-to-end agility is what we aim for. And as you know, many of them want to just make their IT team, or in this case, only designers of the hardware, agile, not talking about rest. And we are trying to emphasize that. Okay. So, and also I happen to work with another person called Joe Justice. I don't know if you guys heard, the Wiki Speed guy, the one who manufactured the car in just 3 weeks, a running version, which is as per the road legal safety guidelines in the US, and they won some prize, and then he became famous in the hardware agility, and I was a colleague of him a few years back, and now he actually coaches Elon Musk and his teams, and he's not reachable easily. So that's a bit of background. So let's request all of you to get up and come to the first section. So please be standing. Feel free to sit, if you really are tired, but let's keep the energy on. So we'll start uncovering one by one. In fact, only we uncover the first one, and other charts we will face later. Or maybe I will hold a little bit of surprise for some more time. And let's start with, what are your thoughts on agility in hardware design? Now, I've just tried to come up with an icon which could signify or convey the meaning. What could be your thoughts on what do we mean by bringing agility in hardware? It's normally called as hardware design in the manufacturing company. Like we do software development, they call it as hardware design. They don't call it as hardware development. That's why we try to use the same word from the industry. So what are your thoughts on what could be the meaning of bringing agility? Faster development is a benefit. You'll be able to develop faster. But what do we mean by bringing agility in designing hardware components or products?
So a particular hardware is composed of multiple small components.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe more collaboration there.
Okay.
It can be developed in silos and then combined together.
Yeah, so it can be done something in parallel and then combined together with known stable interfaces, for example.
Quicker integration.
Yeah, quicker integration, or maybe a continuous integration, which could be a dream. Even in software, it's a dream for many companies yet.
I think for me, there are two things. One is people, certainly one aspect always for any agility. And second is like, are you building the right product? So knowing your customer's requirements, and looking from MVP point of view.
Yeah.
That would be another thing I think I want to start with.
So think of examples of your car, for example, right? Gone are the days where, there is a brand, there is a known car, and we all have a dream of having that. Now today we are living in a world where I want the best things from all the brands and I should be able to configure. In fact, in one of our previous clients that Manju and I were working, they had this top 60 customers and they went and asked a question. One of them was an automotive giant, which is BMW. They asked them a question about how would you imagine your business in 30 years from now? And they gave an interesting answer and a follow-up question. The first answer they gave was, probably we will not be anymore in the business of selling cars. We will have cars, but they'll be known as entertainment centers on the road. They'll not be the cars. And our industry business would be disrupted by them. And then the follow-up question was, would you consider us as a partner in your disruption journey? And they said, probably not, because you're not ready for it. And this vendor, the company, the client we are talking about, is like 150 years old, big giant monopoly. But still, BMW may not really care for them, because today there is no way you can just take your dabba and just go and sell it as a hardware product. Your product should be interoperable with some other competitors. Maybe a component should be interchangeable, it should be interoperable, and you need consultative selling, because most of the manufacturing plants, the production plants in the client, we need the cloud enabled digitalization. All of this you are hearing in the manufacturing sector, industrialization 4.0, and we are already going into 5.0. So they need to be able to combine some digitalization, cloud enabling, interoperability, and sell through consultative sales, not through dabba based sale. So hence, they said the answer, we are not expecting you because you're not ready yet. All you guys know how to install your dabba and explain, but I need a consultative salesperson. Okay, so that's the kind of disruption happening.
But in the context of agility, we are talking about the first piece of car, right? Which is the innovative development of the first piece of car, not the...
We're talking about the business, manufacturing, and staying relevant in the business. right? Imagine what is happening now because of Tesla. And it is going to be even more disrupted because Tesla is not yet penetrated everywhere. It might even come to India. There are negotiation, political stuff happening. They came and disrupted many of the automotive guys. And Elon Musk is set out to disrupt many more businesses if you follow him, right? You saw the Twitter. I think the next one is in Facebook, I believe I heard in the queue. Okay? And I'm not talking about Elon Musk like crazy companies. Some company, some division from Accenture or Google, they can come and set up a shop next to a big manufacturing company, have the right technology investment, and all of a sudden disrupt some portion of your business. That can happen. And that's why many of the manufacturing companies are facing that threat. And one is digitalization, Industry 4.0, moving towards 5.0, which involves a lot of AI and other stuff. Plus these potential threats, the competitors who can just come from nowhere and disrupt energy management and many, many sectors like that. So threats are there. There is a real reason why Agile is happening. We will share more on the case studies. But let's, for another 5 minutes, 4 minutes, what else could be the meaning of bringing agility in hardware design? What are other thoughts from you?
How to anticipate the change which is going to happen in future quickly? And
How do you do it in software?
Market research, competitive analysis.
And a lot of this requires, Satya was talking in his previous session about going to the people, reaching out to the people. There's no way you can do it in your cozy cabins, in the AC rooms. You got to go to the people. Hardware, it's even more relevant. You got to go and meet people. So that's the discovery part. So that means the discipline called product discovery, product thinking, is also very much relevant for agile hardware or agility in hardware. Okay. Any other perspectives there for agility? Can you imagine bringing agility in the process of coming up with a new car design or a new, let's say this bottle design and then shipping it or launching it? What are some other thoughts?
Mobile design or a laptop or large complex systems.
Everything
like
physical that you see here, along with embedded software, of course.
aircrafts, medical devices, those which operate with electromechanical systems, and software is only a portion of it, right?
By the way, as we speak, it is implemented, agility in hardware is implemented even in fighter planes. Saab Aeronautics, they build the entire fighter jet plane using, I think, 180 plus Scrum teams. Every 3 weeks, there is a new version of a working fighter jet plane. There are 8 pilots on the site, right? And they drive that. And they give feedback. So can you imagine the complexity of building a fighter jet plane? So it's done, dusted. And the practices involved, technical practices, the approach, everything is documented. The only question remaining is, are you interested to explore and discover? Many companies are not even aware that this is happening. No, I'm talking about manufacturing companies and even the agilists in the community. So I got into it because there was a client and I was forced to do it, and then it became a passion and I started exploring. Okay, so I think we are getting good thoughts. So let's move on just to make our workshop. So I want to give you a bit of context so that you can do some activities in your tables. So when you're doing the activity, you're free to sit and stand and then come back to each of the board that we want to go. So a few things, Manju, you can also add here. In the like we have in the software, analysis, design, the traditional waterfall, and then doing all of them in parallel, similar thing. There's this concept of conceptualizing, and they produce something called concept whenever they're designing something new. And then based on the shortlisted concept, which is approved, business case, everything, design starts. And design is typically done in the R&D division of a manufacturing company. That's typically where most of our electrical engineers, electronics engineers would be hired after, as a fresher, and there are people from 20 years, 30 years still in the same company. There are a whole range of people in R&D. And there is this concept called industrialization. Industrialize basically, let's say you have a design, and design will be there in different formats. There are certain templates and certain diagrams, and a lot of things have to be produced as deliverables. And once it is approved, then they are going to produce another prototype to be able to mass manufacture or mass produce. And that process is called industrialization. And once you have that ready, then the sales starts. Sometimes sales would have happened even before, if it is an existing product getting renewed. And based on the sales and the purchase orders and the bill of material and other stuff, they start sourcing the raw materials or the parts.
Material procurement.
Requirement, right? Procurement. And then the actual manufacturing happens on the line. So they're called plants in most organizations.
Factories or
We have to learn all this language to be able to work. I think Satya was talking about speak their language. There is no way you can influence or coach them without knowing that. And then there's a product launch, physical product launch. So doing all of this in increments, hardware increments, just to simplify, let's not introduce too many jargon. So I'm using the same word which we all know, hardware increments, and iteratively. Doing all of this, not like doing this in one phase and then that becomes a scrum fall or waterfall kind of an approach. And it's failed in software, definitely going to fail in hardware. So we need an ability to do all of this in hardware increments iteratively. And what could be the meaning of a hardware increment, right? So I'm going to take this mic as an example, right? If you want to build this easily consists of many other parts which could be done in parallel and integrated. Same thing applies for a car, an engine, the paint module, the doors, the steering, everything can be actually done in parallel, but it is actually not being done in parallel in many companies. That's where they have to. It's also before the so-called agility in hardware became famous, there was something called, I think, parallel concurrent engineering in the manufacturing, which attempted to do things in parallel, right? So a hardware increment could be a part of a bigger product. It could be an assembly of few parts into an assembly. It could be a sub-assembly which will fit in a bigger assembly. It could be a subsystem. If it is an aircraft, just the power management could be a subsystem, air conditioning could be another subsystem, and so on. Or a module, like a software concept, a module which can consist of all of this, or the whole product itself, if it is a simple product. So any of this could be product increment in the hardware. And how do you do it? How do you conceptualize? How do you design? How do you industrialize? How do you source? And how do you potentially launch in a quarterly release, for example, take feedback and then shape it up further, which is very, very hard to imagine for people in the manufacturing industry, because the way it works is like, software story 20 years back, do everything and then finally come to me and I will certify, because there is a lot of certification involved. Testing, safety certification, reliability, robustness, and federal regulatory guidelines, healthcare regulatory guidelines. Without certifying, you can't release, right? And the way that it works is do everything and finally I will put you the stamp. And now you're talking about bringing agility. Can you imagine what happens? So we'll give you more food for thought once you go back to the activity. So hardware iterations. So we spoke about iteratively. What we have seen in our experience, I've seen in 9 years working with them, is there are companies as crazy as Joe Justice's teams, including his own company, Wiki Speed, and he has tried this in Bosch, BMW, Tesla, SpaceX. In many places, he managed to do 1 week iterations. In 1 week, there is a working version of a product increment or several increments which can be integrated every week, and the whole system works. It's done, dusted, no questions asked. It's not a theory or not a futuristic concept. But in general, many companies, because if you consider Elon Musk as a crazy person and his companies as crazy companies, rest all would be, let's say, normal companies. Normal companies who made a serious attempt at least need 12 weeks to produce something as a real working increment. But in our coaching intervention, we have challenged them, and 2 to 4 weeks is what we recommend. We can come up with a hardware increment in 2 to 4 weeks, which is good enough to either showcase to a real customer and seek feedback, or at least show to some internal stakeholders who are representative customers and take some feedback. And after 2 or 3 sprints, invite real customers when it makes sense. It's possible, and we recommend that. So that's about their world. And in software world, we have demo, right? In the end of the iteration, end of the PI, you have something we can demo. So what can we demo in the hardware industry? There is this piece, all piece, right? It's pieces, if you call all piece. And this was not there, only traditionally in the many companies they call KP, EP and MP. Key prototype, engineering prototype, manufacturing prototype. We added RP through our coaching, and we picked it from product discovery. The early discovery, right? When you don't even know whether market exists, you need a rapid prototyping, like how we do in software world. Anyone can share an example of rapid prototyping in software when you're doing the discovery phase?
Create the mockups.
Yeah, UI mockups and
And we actually have a clickable things, right?
Yes.
Like have the flow directly.
They feel
Yeah.
like they're actually using a
They
product,
can
but
visualize it, like what product
Right.
they would be using it out
True.
and what would be the outcome of the
true.
product.
And if they don't like the idea, if the idea fails, you can just move on, put it to the dustbin and move on. No investment on coding development, nothing, right? Similarly, rapid prototyping can be done using 3D modeling and 3D printing and so on. There are ways to do it, and companies are doing it. In fact, many of the suppliers are embracing this so that you get a rapid prototype rather than actual part. Okay, it's happening. And the rest are something which are already in practice. So a key prototype, I talked about conceptualizing. So they have to produce a concept to build a business case and get approval. And that's called key prototype, to get the business approval. Engineering prototype is an outcome of R&D, right? So the design. So the design, which has happened from R&D department with all the factors and talking to the manufacturing and suppliers and all, but it is ready to go into the mass manufacturing. That's called EP, which is an output of design phase. And similarly, manufacturing, when it goes to manufacturing, before they do mass manufacturing, they have to produce something called MP, manufacturing prototype, which is ready for mass production and also certified already. The first version would be certified, and if you follow the same thing and reproduce, in some companies like cars, some years back, used to be mass certified. Elon Musk disrupted. Every new car from Elon Musk gets certified in 45 minutes. And every new car, not a whole batch of cars. Every new car, the moment the car is ready, the AI software automatically sends a notification to the certifying body, and they certify in 45 minutes because the delta chain they would have made is also already tested automatically, automated tests, and all other previous are already automated and they are green, still green, like TDD. So that's why they are able to get certification in 45 minutes with 1-page documentation for certification. The big giants like BMW, the other guys have 400-page documentation. It's a 2 to 3 months process to get whatever batch they take to get certified. Can you imagine the disruption? What he is bringing, Elon Musk. Okay? So this is the context. Keep this context in mind, and we want you to co-create with us the next set of activities. So, and Manju, please help me, the co-facilitator, the next chart, and I already pasted the tapes. So let's move on to this. So no sitting, only standing and moving, and we'll give you the supplies after we tell you the activity. We'll spend about, so whenever we do things, we need a lot of passion, so we will not watch our time, so please remind us if we are near the close time. So one thing we found through discovery, experience and experiments is, even in the software industry, if you want to have an effective agile, so I think it's troubling for the camera person here. So you had to be. So at the end of this workshop, our camera person would have learned agility. That's a byproduct which we didn't anticipate. So even in the software, the success of an agile effort or agility effort lies in the effectiveness of planning more times, right? Not a big plan, but the very act of coming together and planning. Same thing is important even in hardware. And there are a few key conversations. So I'm sure Satya is here, and if you've tried SAFe, there's a lot of preparation that goes into a PI planning, right? Same thing happens even in the hardware, or should happen if you want to bring agility. And what we call as something called 6 key conversations. We adopted this from 4 key conversations from a person called Dr. David Ullman. He tried bringing agility, and he's written a book called Scrum for Hardware. 2018 he has published. He had 4 key conversations, and in the ground we felt there are 2 more important conversations, so we adapted and added. These are the 6 key conversations, and you can read this. What is being designed? Okay. We're talking about the hardware increment here. And what product attributes should be created or changed? As an example, right? Again, if I take a bottle, maybe the shape of this bottle, the aesthetic or the physical design could be a product attribute. The texture of this could be an attribute. The color, right? The temperature withstanding pressure, the power consumption if it is a different product, right? All of them become attributes. So when you are defining a new hardware product, designing a new product, it should meet all of that. Only then it will pass the test. So the product attributes. So what is being designed, what product attributes should be created or changed is a key conversation for an agile hardware team. What is the incremental value or benefit out of this increment, and for whom? It's quite easy in software to imagine if you know user stories and personas and so on. In a hardware, if it is a subsystem, then it will be consumed by another subsystem maybe. There are no real end users there. Or depending on what is being designed, your consumers could be very different, and what they are what they can perceive as a value or a benefit could be very different. It could be your internal stakeholders, finance guys, procurement guys, or it could be a real customer or your channel partner. You have a product, someone else will take and they put a brand label and do something else and then sell it. You don't sell it directly. They could be also your potential customers, right? Internal customer. So what's the value or benefit, right, of this increment, and for whom? And what is this, whatever you're designing, what does it need to do? What's the functionality or a feature? And how do we know that, how do you prove that that need is met when we finish designing? That means, it's like TDD, test-driven development. How do you know whether, we have a test which is passing and giving us green in an automated manner? How can we do this in hardware? These are the key conversations which will give you the preparatory data for your, let's say, PI planning, if you do a quarterly planning in hardware, right? So now, we want you to, there are some sticky notes and sketch pens we'll give you. You can spread out or sit in wherever, right? It's up to you. Try to answer these questions for an imaginary, not imaginary, we want to really build this. For this conference, we were not able to make an attempt, lots of busy schedule. We have something called FITMA, a fitness machine for all, or a basic fitness check machine for everyone. Something which can come at a low cost, and it can be used to check the fitness of a baby toddler to a 96-year-old person. It could be used by doctors, it could be used by you, anyone. Basic fitness check. Let's say weight and height, minimum, and it can be expanded. Let's say you want to build such product. We want you to answer these questions in smaller sticky notes and come up with some pointers. And we'll try to come back and paste it here. So you will get about 8 minutes to do the round 1. Okay? So you can settle down. We'll give you some sticky notes and sketch pens, if you can help them. Yeah. 4 sketch pens. So try to put the color. So you see we have prepared with all the hard material to engage you. No soft PPTs.
So you can take that photo.
Yeah. So one set here, you guys can try it. Yeah. Another set of sketch pen there. Yes. The ones which are opened already. So let's try to answer as a group, come up with answer for this question. We want you to experience what it feels.
You can sit as a group so that you can.
Yeah, as a group. We don't have logistics for each one. Try to be an agile hardware team for 10 minutes, 8 minutes.
Yeah. We have sticky notes. Yeah,
Yeah. Can take.
we have additional sticky notes.
Yeah, and additional sketch pens.
Yeah, we have sketch pens and sticky notes.
So when you write something on a sticky note, the basic rule of agile, until you die, please write it in capital letters.
And 1 point in 1 sticky note. So anyway, we are giving
And
a small
another master tip of me practicing agile from 2003, don't ever tear a sticky note like this because it always stays like this. So one of the ways of doing it is tearing it horizontally like this. Then it stays horizontally, whether it's a big one or small one.
That tip actually.
That tip. So whenever you're opening a sticky note,
Okay.
do it horizontally like this and paste it, it stays horizontal. If you do it like this, it will stay like this when you paste on the wall. Benefit of practicing from long time. And we have seen all super sticky notes which don't stick. Yeah, but focus on the Fitma. Focus on Fitma. Myself, Manju, or Satya, we'll be your customers. You can call us and ask any question. We'll be the potential consumers of Fitma. You can call us anytime. Conversation is more important than the time. We will time box for sure. We have time till 1:05, right?
Yes. 1:05, yes. So check time.
Yeah. Be a co-creator, please add your perspective. You can make some assumption about a particular increment instead of discussing the whole product. So to make it more tangible, focus on one of the product increments instead of the whole product. Okay. To the early increment, right? That will make it easier. You can focus on one of the early increments instead of the whole product. That will make it more tangible.
At a point, how much it is got pulled, and that would be displayed on there. When you were looking at the order, but then maybe for the expression could be somewhat tricky. Then we
When he said toddler is a child who can move, toddler is the child who can walk, who can stand there. But he didn't say a baby. So that means it is clear.
Is this assumption correct?
That's why customers are standing. We want even the baby to be supported, like how you put a baby like this.
Okay. So because when you gave your requirement, you said toddler.
Yeah.
You used the word
I had a fight with my wife when I spoke about that. Now I remember that I need the support for baby also. That's how customers. Yeah, do ask.
right something so where that can sleep and that can be attached to the height.
Just one provision that we are having, right? For toddlers. Now if you have to scale it for
Think in terms of modules, detachable. Yeah, that's good. Okay, if you're ready with a few pointers, yeah, go and paste it in the sections. So you have 3.5 minutes remaining to finish the round 1 of the conversation. Three 3.5 minutes remaining. 3.45 minutes remaining. Hardware. We need precision.
modify the question in such a way that it can be used for running and all other activities.
So which question you are referring to? Third. Yeah. So what's the value or a benefit of that potential increment that you're trying to design, and for whom. Because if this is not clear, your sprint planning will be like time pass. PI planning will be time pass. So if you have a few things ready, be incremental, go paste it. So I see that there is a lot of analysis paralysis here. Please produce the increment and go transfer there. You have last 1 minute to paste. Pardon?
Can we call every question?
All these questions are to be discussed together for a particular increment, so that you can do better planning.
Height calculating machine.
Yeah.
Everyone puts the same thing in like it will be jumbled, no?
That's okay. It's just a collective thought about each of those questions for the same product. You are doing the conversation for the same product, no?
But our increment focus is different.
Ah, okay. That could be different. That's fine. That's fine. We just want to get your thoughts on how you think.
How many groups are
In fact, it will be interesting to know which increment each team thought as the first thing.
we can have 3 columns?
Yeah, okay. That's good. Our Scrum Master is there. So, guys, your input, can we have columns? Weight machine, right? So, that's your thing. Someone has written. Yeah. So, try to categorize your input as a first column. Yeah. Thank you, Scrum Master. Come on, guys. Last 40 seconds to paste.
Forget about a toddler, please. You can put a water bottle and check the water. Don't need a toddler. बच्चा तो क्या होगा?
Huh?
Time done.
Yeah, time only last 40 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to whistle 10 seconds.
ಪುಣೆ ಬರಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ಮನೋಜ್ಗೆ ಆವಾಗ ಕೀ ಲೀಡರ್ಸು ಯಾರೂ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಇರೋಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಈ ಕೇಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ರೋಲ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೋಲ್ಲ ಇಂಡಿವಿಜುವಲ್ ರೋಲಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದರು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜಾಯಿಂಡ್ KPIT and
Okay, can you all get up, please? Come near this section. Yeah. So in hardware, many R&D script that plant is not with us. Plant is in some other country. Plant's in Haryana, right? So you guys are lucky to have plant in this together. Okay, so everyone came here. Okay. So now we'll not go to debrief everything because each of your increment could have been very different. Okay. So a quick answer from each group. What was your first increment that you discussed on? So from this table. Weight management. Okay. So how do we do weight management in that basic device? However it looks, we don't know. Right. Second table.
We also talked about the weight.
Weight. Okay.
Looking into that, but we want to build as a specific weight for
Smaller weights.
up to
Yes. So you segmented your customer and only discuss
from
around
toddler to
that.
5 years. Like
The other group.
weight and height goes.
Okay. You try to discuss both.
Detachable.
Yeah, detachable thing to support baby as well as they had an assumption, and I told them that I was crazy when I said only toddler. Babies are also need to be supported because it can be used by a doctor or any poor person, right? We want to do a low cost stuff which works with high quality, and this is a potential thing that you can go back and build if you go and explore more on this. So that's good. Different increments. Now, out of all these 6, trying to answer 6, which one was more difficult? Which question or which conversation was more difficult? What are your thoughts?
Which question was it?
incremental was one of the.
Yeah, which is also the same in software also. It is even more difficult in hardware. Okay, because Satya was talking about potential reasons for failure of a transformation. One big reason he said is if you don't invest on people. Second big reason is if you cannot visualize what's the incremental value, forget about Agile. Because your planning will be junk, you will invite people who are irrelevant, you will not even ask questions which are supposed to be asked to validate your assumption. And then you say we are doing Agile with sticky notes. That becomes fake Agile, right? So two big reasons why transformation fail. Hardware, this is an important reason if you cannot visualize what's the incremental. Otherwise, what will happen is in the fake Agile implementation, even in hardware, which happens, they say that we will try to come up with a approval for a document, a concept diagram, and that approval takes 2-3 weeks. And all the work that they do is only do that. No incremental value and no agility, no feedback, right? So that is definitely difficult. It is not difficult when you have clarity on whom. Imagine the part being manufactured is, let's say, the cap. This is the part. And who will be the consumer, immediate consumer of this? This is the other part, right? If these two are getting designed from different companies, let's say you're only doing this and this is, then there is a different company, or it could be a team. So if you're clear on what is being designed and for whom, then you can also be clear on what's the value of benefit that it's supposed to, this part is supposed to give. For example, I should be able to do it like this, and if I do 10 times, it should not become loose. So something which never gets loose, or something which where the ink never leaks. Those are all something that could be the value. Maybe there are alternatives, and how many times, this is the shirt which is still now I have not, put any ink so far. Most of the workshop I will get these inks because of the shabby markers. That's why I rely on now Beaker blow pens, which are more, I purchased from Singapore. So people look for such quality, and that's the incremental value. Though you are building the same cap and same pen which can write on a flip chart, Beaker blue pens, if I write and post it in the front wall, even the person sitting here can visualize. It's not like a marker. And even if after 5 years, the same ink intensity will be there. That's the quality of Beaker blue pens. And it can be used for shading, and one color you can shade another. You've seen this here, right? And there is no overlap there. There are many minute details which you can imagine, converse, and validate your assumption throughout the journey. Okay? Any other question which was difficult here? How about the last one? How do you know? This is the most difficult to even think and also implement, right? How do you validate?
How will you validate?
And the easy answer from a coach is do TDD. But how do you do?
No.
So can you imagine the meaning of being able to test something in an automated manner before you build the part in hardware? What does it mean in hardware? In software, let's say, what does it mean? How do you test something before you produce your code or write your code?
Simulation.
You have a unit test or integration test, or you have a simulator tool. In software, you have some tools. In hardware, you can go with simulators. There are simulators available. In fact, you need a hardware rigger to test another hardware. So you have to design that also.
You need to build another hardware to test your actual product. Right.
Right?
Jigs are made usually.
Yes. Yeah. So for example, in the Saab aeronautics flight was being built, to test that, you need another big rigger which will put that air pressure and the temperature just to test the steadiness of that the outer panel, right? So you need to design that also, and people don't factor that. Right?
It's called test equipment.
And they say that, all of this will be done in a lab or a plant, we'll worry about it later. What happens? Anything which is postponed, the effect in the software. Crash, or software crashes, say hardware definitely. Can you imagine plane crash? Saab Aeronautics, 8 pilots come to on-site every 3 weeks to test something which is getting designed. And they tested by actually flying.
But in that case, what if fighter plane get crashed? How,
So that means that safety of the pilot and things will be the first priority. And that will be there not only in the first increment, every increment until the product is launched.
Regression testing will happen for all. It's like integration testing.
In software, we can get away by saying things were working in the first few sprints. Now there's some things. Here you're gone. Right?
Even they are having simulator, you have to keep on doing it, right?
Yeah. You know what?
Some of the parts can be tested on simulator, but then again,
Yeah,
it-
not everything can be tested in a simulator. Some things require physical rigor to do that. Crash testing, for example, you need to crash. You can simulate most of it, but when you go for certification, they need a physical crash test report. And that's triggering that physical test, collecting the results can be automated.
So recently, Mercedes tested the bulletproof car.
Yes,
right? So
yes.
that was kind of being done physically, but prior to that, like, would they have done simulated?
Simulated, the smart companies do that, simulation plus physical test, plus every test after test, there is an artificial intelligence. So they use AI to actually predict what could be a potential defect which can't be even detected by a manual tester in the hardware. And they produce reports which will be sent to the automotive authority, and that's how Elon Musk companies were able to reduce 400 plus documentation to one page, and everything with automated. So the next car, you would have changed something which is a delta, which is already tested in an automated stuff. All previous are still green. That's how they're able to certify each car, not a batch of the car, in 45 minutes. They can actually be able to sell on the roads. That means when you go and order a Tesla car, let's say I order, and after 2 hours, there's one more customer who comes, orders a similar model. But there is actually a difference between this model and the next model. Maybe it could be in the minor tune of the paint, or it could be some small internal aspects of the car, or maybe the external, but just by external look, you can't make out. And everything is like working, and they have backward compatibility for the parts. That's how they design. So I was coming to a point that whether it's software, hardware, the only thing which can help us to make this possible is solid engineering practices. I'm yet to see software team claiming successful in being able to potentially produce a shippable increment without XP practice, without engineering practices from different world. And it's highly impossible even in the hardware. Hence, there is something called extreme manufacturing, which has evolved.
But I see the movement for that is, I don't know, it looks like the pace is slowed down because Joe just used to talk a lot about it.
Yes.
10 years ago?
10 years ago.
What's active now?
No, now what happened is he joined Elon Musk as a coach.
He has.
Yeah, and he coached there. He came out in 9 months. And he got fascinated, so fascinated that he was thinking himself as agile, and all of us, right? We tried, I was with Joe. He said Elon Musk and his company is beyond agile, and there are so many things to learn. So now he's documenting their engineering practices in a new book called Scrum Master, and it has nothing to do with Scrum Master. It's about agility end to end. And he is there's a whole chapter called XM, Extreme Manufacturing. There are 11 principles for hardware design, and a few, I think he calls it as practices and principles. How do you keep your assembly, or let's say the R&D place with all this good things from Toyota and a few new things, along with engineering practices, TDD, pairing, swarming. He's documenting them,
So
how
look
things
at,
are working.
Look at the way the SpaceX does it, right? So the earlier industry was once you launch some spacecraft, it's gone, your investment. But now they use reusable rockets, right? So that's not true.
No, that was not the original intention. Their intention was something else. But what I'm referring to is the engineering practices they're using to bring the speed of doing, whether it's SpaceX or Tesla or other.
SpaceX also tests their starships every 3 weeks. They have got a testing cycle.
Yeah, even lesser than that. So every week, in SpaceX, particularly if you're speaking about, the latest news is that it's a confirmed thing. Obviously, Joe has worked with them, and I know another person. They test their rocket 27 times in a week, a real working version 27 times. So their sprint demo happens on that space 27 times in a week.
When we make a statement like they test, and I think the gentleman there also said that, it's a loose statement. Test to what extent? Right?
Test their increments. Yes. So I already gave that context before you came. It's not the whole.
Yeah.
So because their SpaceX is, let's say, imagine that's an extra large project. In reality, in execution, it's about some 20 plus extra small modules being designed and integrated continuously with known stable interfaces. And when we talk about testing, it's about those, and even an integration can also be tested. depending on how many teams are working. Yeah, that's important, and that's what we mean. Okay? Okay, good. So we will move to the next round. So please continue the movement. So based on what you discussed in the previous round for the product, plus now use your creativity, imagination, what could be the opportunities and challenges if you want to bring agility in the way we described and with the context we gave? Those prototypes. And one thing I forgot to mention, we saw conceptualizing, designing, industrializing, sourcing, and launching. So conceptualizing, product management involvement is key. Designing is R&D, pretty much done by most of the R&D part of the manufacturing companies. Industrializing, sourcing is done by supply chain and procurement. And manufacturing and launching, sales and marketing, usually they call it as front office in many manufacturing companies. Sales and marketing and the plants. So you see so many entities are involved. And if you want to bring end-to-end agility, they all have to collaborate and work together. So keep that context in mind. What could be some opportunity, if they end up doing that way, what could be an opportunity for a company like Siemens or any big company? What could be the challenges of doing that? We want you to put your creative hat. You already see that, for Fitma you tried, that weight machine. And how do we embrace those opportunities? How do we address this? Because we want to get your perspective first before we could share our case studies in the next section. Okay? So go back to your table again, 3 sticky notes for this, 3, and overall 9. Go back, go back. No, you can now think about any product. Right? The principles are same. So you can even take the same case study just to make your discussion more concrete.
Just say same, because when you make it open-ended, I think.
No, we gave them some key conversations which can be used for any hardware increment. But then if you want to have a tangible discussion, you should continue on the same case.
We should have come here, yeah, we went to some.
Anyway, we are planning to design a conference around hardware agility. First time in
Very good.
September.
In Bangalore?
Yeah, Bangalore most probably.
Around what?
September.
No, I mean like on
August. Hardware agility, this whole same concept, full-fledged conference, pre and post workshops.
Okay.
Very good.
With some real products. So I'll just grab some water. 1 second. Customer. Huh? Yeah, if you use same product, your discussion is more tangible. Otherwise, principles are same. You can use for it.
Can happen only if that thing is used to both or running or exercise. So if it is a still thing. So for the second iteration, you still can mention as an
We can sell, we can scale a product. Immediately the opportunity.
So opportunity is like meditation, concept, development, gaining it properly, hiding
So start to think whenever someone we are having capabilities, so only one thing we are thinking is help others. So whatever you want,
Also
that particular machine will
but then it will be integrated with their body mass index, what you say. Unless they are having some radio frequency
saying that
so you can sell only one
they want but they can be integrated, can sell
Can we use a single product?
And when we go to how to address these, then we can speak about them. So let us now only discuss about challenges.
exactly right. How do we address it? We can start writing as well.
Okay, that's good. Sorry.
Okay, मैं how to address it मैं इधर लिखता हूँ.
Organization. It's
Okay, guys, so we have another 4 minutes for this round. So, So table 1. So do you have your input? Can you transfer there? Okay, so then let's get up. Let's. Okay, let's move. Come on. Hardware workshop. Let's come. Get up, please come. All of you. Time up. So Manju, can you post the next chart, please? So let's stare at this board to look at, see if there is any synergy in thinking about the potential opportunities. We have seen more success if people see opportunities. If agility is brought into the hardware, if they see opportunities, that's a very optimistic or positive group to work with. Then we can go into challenges. Most of them start with, oh, this is not possible in our organization. JP, you don't understand our domain, our business, right? Most of them start like that. But we have seen some groups where they see a bright light. And we give some example of a real case study which is working. We don't have too many. We have to rely on Joe Justice and few guys. So by the time this year, we were planning to do a real physical product which can be potentially certified by a certifying body as a part of simulation. We are working on that, and Joe is also offered to help us. So opportunities. So I just want to read out. You can also come closer, look at it. What opportunity you have written. Selling both the products individually. Both the products meaning, what do you mean by that?
The weight and height product, okay, we can detach them and sell them separately.
So you can have them detachable modules and you can sell them if you think in modules, and hence it can also be manufactured in parallel and integrated, right? Okay, that's
but that is also a threat. There is a possibility that it is already written in the challenges part.
Yeah.
There is a possibility because your height part will be more sold at the pediatrician clinics or something like that. Whereas weight part can be sold at any age group.
So any age group you have a standard part, and for those guys you customize.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah?
Major
So
another challenge would be like integrating height machine with a weight machine, because like we wanted to record and height on a weight machine itself.
Yeah.
So
the integration mechanism
would not be able to integrate that very easily.
So we have a volunteer group who are trying to do that hardware agility with a real product. We started around this idea. We haven't progressed much, but the very first discussion around this, someone gave an idea that let's say you have a weight machine like this, and the height one is like you plug in and you pull, right? And at the moment you plug in, the integration already happened, both hardware and software.
The string thing is
how would actually plug in, like, because again the implementation part is a challenge, right, over here, because like
Implementation of this part alone or the integration? Integration, you just got to have known stable interface. Okay, as long as you don't change the interface, you can keep changing the structure of that. That's the basic principle of concurrent engineering. Keep your interfaces known and stable as far as possible. Even that will change once in a while. When it is changed, communicate and update everyone. But if you try to keep the interfaces known and stable, which can even be done with upfront design, okay, and that's what you're supposed to do in hardware. Figure out some of the interfaces, how they talk to each other, and fix it for some time. And each part can go in parallel with iterations using Agile.
That's a challenge the industry is facing because they have still not standardized the mode of communication with all, right?
Yeah, but who else? No one else will come and standardize unless you choose to do that as a part of the organization. Their other problem would be, would the certifying authority or regulatory guidelines, would they agree, right? And again, you can watch one of the Joe Justice's videos. He has several videos, and I have experience from GE Healthcare. We'll quote, in fact, we are going into the next section because we're not going to discuss all challenges here. We will discuss as a part of case study, but we'll pick this as the first one. Would the certifying authority agree for that way of doing it? In my case, we were working in GE Healthcare around 2011. We were doing a large-scale transformation, 11-12. I was dealing with India, and my partner Pete was doing it in US. And their challenge was, it's a healthcare product. I think we were working, my team that I was coaching on, a couple of teams were some imaging machine, like, we go and do some testing, right, in the lab, some imaging machine. They say that radiologist and the stuff, the body will not agree. And we said, no, can we connect to the representatives whom you talk to get the approval, right? The FDA regulator, US FDA regulator guideline. And we talked to them. And initially they said the same thing. No, you have to do all of this, because if you keep changing, this requires you to go and train the radiologist and a lot of trainings in the hospitals, and it's not easy. You cannot keep changing. Then we said, okay, if you were to approve at the end, what are some of the key consideration of factors that you consider to put a seal that this is okay? We got a list. Okay. Then we asked the question, in the actual work of approving, will you do all of this at once, or how do you do it? Which one do you inspect first after the parameter? Which one is next? Which one is the last? And who does what? So we try to understand how they work. Then what we said is, okay, the way you are doing the work looks like there is a lot of room for introducing Scrum in your work. Would you like to try? And we gave them a basics of Scrum. They did their work using sprints, a few sprints. And they were not even 1 week sprints, they were like 3 day sprints. Okay, with a weekend coming in between. So they liked the idea of, wow, okay, we became more efficient and we don't have to do a lot of rework. At the end, we know that other things are already checked. We just have to put the final check, final stamp on. They got the idea about these people going and showing them something incrementally. And then we enabled. That's all we did there. So another experience.
Question here. Okay. Was the definition of done completed within the sprint, or it was happening outside the sprint?
For those people, regulator guidelines or the actual
For
GE
the regulatory
healthcare?
guidelines, yeah.
No, for them, we didn't introduce too many jargons. We just understood how they work, important factors. We said, why don't you try the first factor in the first sprint, next factor in the next sprint, and so on, and see how it becomes easy for you to do the final approval.
Yeah.
Right? We gave them the value of doing things iteratively.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, okay, these guys will come and give us few things about the first few factors. We are okay to review it. Initially, they were not okay. Okay? The second example is from, I think, Joe. He shared, if you open both FDA regulated healthcare, FDA food and drugs regulatory guidelines and the automotive also, they disrupted. They have clearly written, he has shown the actual page of the guidelines. It's okay to use a traditional approach for non-trivial products in the healthcare industry. If it is anything significant, critical, we encourage you to go iteratively. And they have a version of agile guidelines. In there, no one bothers to see that. And no one believes that this can be done. Okay, it's written there.
So were they thinking of agile when they wrote that, or was it added later on?
No, it was there from almost 10 years now, 10 to 12 years, when the agility became, they didn't use the word agile, they said you can do things iteratively. They use the word iteration in a normal English sense, okay, not from this one. And second thing is, they said, what we want to ensure is you have a particular process. We don't care whether it's waterfall, whether it's Scrum, whether it's agile. A particular process should be there so that it's repeatable and stuff like that. And they said, for complicated and significant products, we want you to do few things at a time. Don't try to do everything together. It's written there. We're not able to leverage that. So one was that. The second example, we remember Manju and I shared about the Elon Musk bringing to one page. And there is a story, and you should hear from Joe in one of his videos possibly. I know you can join his course also. The way they managed to do that is, first time when they went for the approval for the car, they said, where is your documentation? 400 plus pages, like BMW and other guys give this, Toyota and other guys. They said, here is our documentation. And I think it was not one page at that time, few pages. And they said, lot of questions, and these people started interacting. Then they understood that, oh, you know what, these people actually need a very few important stuff, but we don't know that. So let's go and ask them, out of all these 400, what is more important? They started asking, oh, this one, it's already there in automated test green. Okay, it's already a software, the combination of hardware and software, which is already certified. Or this one. So they ended up showing the reference where it is there in page. It happens to be that if you pick all of their input, it becomes just one page at the end. That means many of the organizations fail to understand what are the key things they need for them to certify. So hence they first of all put too many things, like how we do feature, what is it called? Add too many features. There is a term in software. Second thing is, because a lot of things are manual in those companies, they have to have a lot of documents. These people have invested in robotics, robots doing testing, and AI predicting the next quality of the test, hence it's less. Okay, so that's one example. So now let's move to the other section there. And Manju, if you're still around, yeah, so please add here. So we will share a few case studies from the healthcare, video technology, energy management. We'll not go into each of them because it's big stuff. We'll try to focus on these aspects. Why did they even go to Agile? Try Agile in their companies, and what challenges, approaches, we already discussed one, and what opportunities do they have that we foresee as experienced coaches if they do implement this way. We'll speak in those terms for about another 5-6 minutes. Manju, I'll start with one for why Agile, and you can, I know it's the same division that we were working together. So one of the divisions, they produce something called medium voltage switches. Switch means, switch gears means, you see transformers near your house. Next to transformer, there is another big box, right? The gray color box or green color, some box will be there. If you open that, there is a switch. So when a sudden surge of the voltage happens, the switch flips to protect not only to that equipment, even for house. So it's called switch. And we are talking about medium voltage switches. They were manufactured. It will be like this big, right? It's a panel and something is hosted in that. So one of the divisions, line of business, which was trying to implement Agile, we as coaches make sure that wherever we go, we try to understand why they are wanting to do Agile or practice Agile or bring agility, so that we can reiterate that in our workshops and coaching. Because many people don't even know, and these leaders don't bother to do that communication. We want to fill that gap, at least to get some traction. So one guy said, he was kind of a head of that portfolio. JP, Manju, I think had joined at that time, just joined. He said, last 3 years, we built a product in the same range. We took 3 years because usually, typically, hardware product launches are somewhere between 2 to 4 years. Average is 3 years to launch a next version of a product. And Joe Justice is 45 minutes. So not Elon Musk is 45 minutes. Huge difference. So they said, we spent 10 million euros to figure out that this is not sellable at the end of the 3 years for various reasons. And do you know why we are going Agile? Had we known about this not sellable thing in 1.5 years, just 1.5 years, we could have saved 7 million euros.
And time.
And time. And of course time. That's why we want to go Agile. And then, okay, we understand the reason now. And when we go back to the workshop, how do you enable your stakeholders and management to know that it's not going to be sellable in 1.5 years? And obviously, you will not come to know at the end of 1.5 years. You will have early signals. So how do you give that good news and bad news? That depends on what do you plan for your demo or sprint. And if you don't engage the right stakeholders, if you don't do that incremental value based, that news will be there somewhere below the carpet. It still comes at the end of 1.5 years. So, yeah. So why Agile? Discovering this is very important. It's true in software, even more true in hardware. Okay, so this is one example. Manju, you want to add to some challenges and?
Yeah. So this organization is like a typical function-based organization where a team of mechanical designers and then electrical designers. There is a supply chain, there is a manufacturing, there is a procurement team, and there is somebody who takes care of quality, and everybody says, okay, throw the ball on the come out with your design and finalize it, then only we'll review it and ensure that we give an approval to go to the next phase. So what used to happen is in that process, so the ideas used to come very late. Designers will design keeping certain assumptions and certain topics in mind, and then later when they go for those stage gate approvals and all, they realize, oh my God, we missed certain aspects of it, right? So the only way to do it is when they started looking into an agile way of working is build more of a cross-functionality. And they used to have more of silo teams Now they have broken down that into more of a cross-functional team. So that means a team will be responsible right from cradle to grave, right from new product introduction, enhancement to the existing product. And in hardware products, you know what happened during pandemic time is the supply chain become impacted because of dependency on certain areas or countries or certain manufacturing hub. Now you have to deliver product to the customer, but you don't have the same set of parts being sourced. So you end up replacing those parts, which is pretty not easy. But the same set of designers who worked on the product need to also understand these and make it kind of thing. So what used to happen in isolations used to result in many non-value added or surprises from the customer side. So they kind of created what we call stream-based or value stream-based kind of a team, which will work together, representative from all the different entities, right, from sourcing, supply chain, manufacturing, quality, and all the various functions which is required to get and build a product into an agile team. And this agile team is empowered to make those decisions and backed up by a product owner who sets our entire vision and roadmap, and they break down this entire 3 or 4 years roadmap into smaller pieces, do it more in an iterative way, like typically how we do it in SAFE, right? And we call it as a quarterly planning, and they talk about what is that we need to validate that business case and hypothesis early in the game. And because of that, what it so happened that the new set of products what they are building in, they built a 3D model, cardboard prototype, and they went into one of their customer. They said this looks good, but you know what, this product says what you have built, it doesn't fit into our chambers. Typically the size and volume of those products plays a huge role. And earlier, these designers used to design based on what they think is the right, without looking into what customer really, how they are going to use it. Now this surprise came up so early in the first increment, or it was rather second or third increment, and they had to redesign the entire product. So this was possible because they were approaching more in an increment way, as well as they involved the right set of customers, what we call panel or typically the early adapters. So they went into the actual field, took those prototypes, and they got the products. So the challenges are still like when it comes to say manufacturing or supply chain, procuring the material, thank you. So it's not so easy to do with it. You end up working with the policy level decisions, you end up influencing leadership level decisions, because typically the supply chain and procurement, they believe in bulk orders so that they get maximum benefit. Whereas this approach requires a lot of experimentation, you cannot design those, so you cannot make those decisions very late in the game. So you end up having multiple rounds of conversation with all the stakeholders. So that's being handled.
And one thing to add to what Manju said is when one of the teams wanted to do that, they had a dependency on the external plant or an external lab to do the test. And Manju had challenged them, and he had a very simple suggestion: why don't we set up a local simple lab which is good enough for your purpose? And they said, no, investment is too heavy, because to set up actually it's a line, right? A plant assembly line or manufacturing line. But even a miniature of that requires a lot more approvals and investment. And he said, why are you constrained with that? Why don't you? There are many the government setup which are there for testing purpose. Some of the products in India,
labs,
multiple companies use the same lab. It's a government managed one. Why don't you use that? There are private guys. Why don't you use their infrastructure, pay for it? But you are getting the feedback, and that's not a big investment. So if you think with an open mind, there are many options available, but someone needs to do that intervention, coaching intervention for them to do.
So you would have heard about this cloud kitchen concept, right? So you don't have your own kitchen, but you're using somebody's. Same way we were kind of doing. There are small manufacturers, there are small companies whose capacity will not be used. So why don't we tap into their network and use their skill and their infrastructure to test or get an early feedback? And it was oh wow.
And as a next step, you can even afford to do a local setup, but not for the entire line of business. So then there was a suggestion that they had this focus called India for India, right? So leveraging Indian opportunities. So first do it as a case study for that. If it works, the whole world will come behind. And that's how I think some of the organizations like Siemens was able to win a $3 billion order from this one for the railways recently, right? You would have seen that image. Okay, and okay, good.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, there are still challenges, but what
the teams are able to, at least on the ground, is able to say seamless communication. They bring in all the stakeholders to the incremental planning, the surprises and those risks get surfaced early in the game. And when it's more load on the leadership team to resolve those dependencies, resolve those problems and bring the people together kind of a thing, which typically happens in the safer thing. So that way, the hardware or software, the context from a process perspective will remain the same. The biggest challenge, as JP was talking about, the technical practices, technical engineering, how quickly you can test it, how quickly we can ensure that whatever we are building is making sense.
And if it is large organization, working together, all those different entities. Same thing as software. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes between us and the lunch, and we need 2 minutes if a time for giving us the roti. Any guesses on what is roti?
Return on time invested.
Yeah, okay, you guys attend the regular Agile conferences regularly. So, your return on time invested, we had this kind of unconventional retrospective. So if it is not so useful, boring, if you felt that, you can put a tick mark, and you can also write a reason why you thought so that we learn from it. Or if you thought it was like exciting, keen to learn more, you can tick here, okay, using your sketch pen, and then put a sticky why you think so. And anything in between, you can be like Buddha. I'm going for lunch and I'm okay, 0. Right? So just 2 minutes, please do this. Servers give us the roti and we'll improve.
And of course, we have noted down.
Yeah, our contacts are there for any more details. If you want to work with us, learn with us, you're all welcome.
Yeah, take for action.
Last action, last pit stop before you go to lunch.
Question could we ask?
Yeah, you can start now and continue.
We'll start the questions.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
First one is like, is it like customer come to you in hardware, they realize they need to do something in terms of agility, or how they realize?
2 large clients, customer came to us, but they didn't know that we are the hardware agility coaches, right? They approached me for addressing their top 60 leaders in India on something called leadership mindset for agility, and I addressed. And in that process, I explained my background about bringing agility in the software and the hardware to your companies. Then they just pulled us.
Okay, so one outcome created another.
Yeah. And that need was created because of the reason I mentioned. That need to save millions of euros. There was a need. Yeah. What's your second question? Okay, sure.
Sorry for interruption. Just want to do JP and Manju. We have Slido as well. So for quick pulse sake.
After those, yeah.
Yes. After roti.
Slido.
Time to have roti.
Double roti. You can go for double roti.
Thank you. So we gave you the warning. We will forget.
No. Everybody. I am sure everybody is hungry now. So.
That's why I'm standing for 1.5 hours.
Yes. Aditya. Yeah. So in the meantime, we would like to have a quick felicitations as well for our speakers. And it's more than 1 hour nice interesting session, because since beginning we are sitting and just listening. So now it's much better than okay we are standing, and now I am sure you will be more hungry, isn't it? So Aditya, I have already captured it. So please felicitate to JP. Thank you. Now our founder, LPGA founder, Manju. Thank you. So I am sure, as I was talking about double roti, so first roti, I am sure you would have already, there is a third roti. First, second, and outside the real roti. You will get it. So just go on to the slido.com, and there is a code available 3283950. Again repetition. No data problem, don't worry about it. You just need to click on one of the smiley, whatever you are feeling about it. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you folks for joining.